Put your faith in the light.
Hello guys, welcome to another one of my videos. This is Lightblade, and well, in this one I wanted to talk about the issues that Retribution Paladins currently have and how has the rework been since 10.0.7 until now. I took inspiration to do this video after reading the post done by BOLAS, the one you can see here. BOLAS is the guide writer for WowHead for Retribution Paladins. He knows the spec in and out and makes great resources for Retribution Paladin community. I recommend reading his post as well. I'll leave the link in the description of the video. And well, with that being said, let's start. Did the rework solve our problems? The answer to this is very simple, yes. For the most part, it did. The rework covered the biggest weaknesses of Retribution Paladins, both defensive and offensive. In the defensive department, we got access to a lot more tools to survive, both passive and active. Ironically, a spec with an immunity before the rework was one of the squishiest of all the game. Currently, we are almost immortal in both raids and Mythic Plus settings, to the point that you can just ignore certain mechanics and still survive. So in terms of defense, the Retribution Paladin rework was a total success. In the offensive department, the answer is also yes. The rework has been a total success, and our spells feel good to press and have meaningful impact, compared to old versions of Red where only the spenders actually did damage and builders were just there to generate holy power and did almost no damage in comparison. So, if the rework was so good, why does Red have issues? This leads me to my next point. While at first glance the Retribution Paladin tree has many options and nodes to pick from, this is mostly just an illusion of choice. For the most part, builds are rigid and have almost no variance, at least if you want to do decent damage. As for playstyle choices, the only real choice you have is if you want to go Crusading Strikes or Templar Strikes, and even then that mostly has gone in favor of Crusading Strikes since it scales better. Our talent tree is filled with a lot of options that would be great to use but have been left very undertuned, therefore being there just for the sake of it, in both AoE and single target, leading us to the next point. Retribution Paladin pre-rework and since about Legion has never had to sacrifice AoE for single target, or the sacrifice was very small. Post-rework Retribution has run into the problem of this being on the extreme side. We sacrifice up to 22% of our single target damage in order to access our AoE. This is very noticeable in the Mythic Plus world, where you will be destroying a pack of mobs, but when you get to the boss, your damage would be really weak in comparison to everyone else. I think while the intentions of the Retribution Paladin devs was good, they went in and tried to reinvent the wheel for a rework on this aspect. This is very noticeable in some talents, like for example Searing Light and Divine Arbiter, both talents that do pretty similar things, you know, they try to do cleave AoE damage, although one is a bit more focused on priority damage, and could have been just removed in order to bring things back like Sanctified Wrath, aka Light's Decree Explosions, which used to cover both AoE and single target at the same time in the past. Another noticeable outlier here is Execution Sentence and Final Reckoning. Why do we have to pick between these? These should have never been a pick node. In an ideal world, we should only have Final Reckoning in this spot. The devs had to only look at past iterations of Red Paladins like BFA or last season of Shadowlands and use those as templates for a rework. There was no need to build stuff from the ground up. Scaling, while it wasn't an immediate problem after the rework, it has started to peek its ugly head, and will be a big issue if we don't get a slight tuning for the next patch. In past expansions, Retribution Paladins used for the most part to scale with Mastery and Haste, at least in the Mythic Plus world, while in raids it was a mix of Critical Strike and Haste. Currently we lost that since Mastery got gutted after the rework, and we don't benefit as much from stats like Critical Strike because of talents that make our abilities either 100% Critical Strike like Templar Strikes and Vengeful Wrath talent, or we just flat out get Critical Strike from our damage cooldowns like Avenging Wrath. Even Haste has kinda become devalued because of things like the Templar Strike build, because well, that thing it has a flat 1 second cooldown, but at least in those situations you can just swap to Crusading Strikes and be just fine. Still, I think a revision should be done here, either to make those talents that have a 100% critical chance do bonus damage according to our crit chance, or revert the Mastery nerfs. I think those two would be good solutions to make. I got to be honest guys, Retribution Paladins have never been a mechanically hard spec to play. When I talked about Red, I've always compared it to Garen from League of Legends. If you haven't played that game, it's a champion that is very straightforward and easy to use, allowing you to play the macro game and focus on other things better. Retribution, I think, has always been like this. The skill to play it mostly comes from the macro stuff. In Mythic Plus, for example, it was cooldown allocation and preparation. Since so much of our power was locked in our cooldown window, doing this correctly by itself made you a better Retribution Paladin. In the past, 90% of our damage happened in our damage windows and 10% out of them, so if you messed that up, you really felt it. The reason Retribution Paladins feel like a spec with low skill floor and ceiling now is because the rework kinda removed that macro gameplay in the sense that we have wings every 1 minute, and for the most part you can just use it on cooldown and you'll be doing just fine. There is no longer a need to pre-plan or do management on your damage windows. The other factor is that the ratio of damage has changed a lot now. 60% of our damage comes from our cooldowns and 40% from out of them. Everything does damage. Builders, spenders, just smash face and you will blast. This is not bad. It's good to have specs that are beginner friendly, and I think Blizzard is moving towards that direction more and more with how they are reworking specs. Like for example mages, they simplified them greatly, and also now with the augmentation evoker spec, this was made with beginner friendly in mind. Having said that, it would be nice if there was a bit more of skill expression added to Retribution Paladin. Doesn't have to be mechanical. I'd say make managing cooldowns a bit more important like it was before. This video wasn't meant to be negative, by the way guys. I just wanted to shed some light, no pun intended, on the issues that plague an otherwise great rework. If the tuning issues are addressed and some small tweaks are done to some talents, I think Retribution Paladins will be in a great position coming the next match. And well guys, that's going to be all for today. I hope you enjoyed the content, and if you did, subscribe and leave a like on the video. Thanks for watching everyone.